So I've got some ginger and some holy basil here in this crate. They're suffering just not enough volume of soil space or water. Temperatures are up. Direct sunlight on that crate raises the temperature of that crate dramatically. So you want to get these into some better conditions. So I've got another old planter grow bag, 20 gallon I believe this was, with a nice growing mix in it that was used for some cannabis. And I just want to recycle that mix. But I just have a great opportunity here to talk about watering in containers and grow bags with mixed soils specifically. This is less of a problem when you're in the ground. You do still have to be attentive to watering and how deep your watering is actually going. But in containers, it can be really tricky with these mixed soils that are based on like cocoa coir or sphagnum peat moss. Those blends can hold a tremendous amount of water capacity in sort of a capillary lockup action in them, for lack of a better way to say it. So this was one that I just watered heavily the other day, and you can see already how uneven the water is in this bin, where the bottom got really wet and soaked out pretty good, and then further up in the soil profile, not so much. We have some pretty dry soil. Now as you dig into that, there is moisture in there, but it's not as moist as you would want it to be when you're done with the watering, and you certainly wouldn't want to be seeing like really dry edges like that showing up. The reason I use things like watering cans and watering wands is because of their ability to distribute water more evenly into the soil profile. And I'm going to remix this soil, so I don't want to make a mess for myself. But just very briefly, I will demonstrate into the soil because it is a little bit dry. I can afford to do that and not make a total mess. I'll just demonstrate with the watering can how if you sprinkle onto the middle of the soil profile slowly and gently, you can see how it soaks through. But if you go too fast, even with a watering can, you can actually overflood. And do you see what happens when you think you're watering correctly? What's happening there? You walk away thinking because of the walls of the pot, you walk away thinking you watered that really well and there's a nice puddle of water there. But what's really happening? It's running down the outside of the pot, flowing off and going to the bottom of the pot, and you've missed the whole center profile of the soil. So that's a really easy mistake to make. I make that mistake still to this day sometimes, and I have to double check myself when I water stuff. Did I do that correctly? Did I get good saturation? When I stick my finger down into the soil, this is hard to do because it's upside down, but what's it like 3 inches down? Do I have soil moisture 3 inches down at the tip of my finger that feels the same as the soil moisture I think I have on top? Am I getting puddles underneath the grow bag? If I lift the grow bag up and tilt it up, is there a wet spot under there? Well, there's water sitting there. Now you're drowning roots. So these are all details that you should just be aware of and pay attention to if you're going to grow in containers, especially grow bags in like grow tents. And it's a different outside. Like if you're out on the native soil, you don't have to worry about that puddling so much. The native soil is going to soak up the excess water. So again, environment dictates gene expression. Control that environment, you'll have much better expression. So now what I've done is gone around and I've smashed down the outer edges of the bottom of that planter pot root ball. And so you're looking at that same thing. I've just smashed the edges off of it to expose more of the root ball so we can get a better look at the root structure in there. So you'll notice right away that there's a couple different layers here. And then also that area that dries out so fast, if you go further into that root core, as it turns out, is where all those root fibers are. And so what's happening there is those root fibers are extracting nutrients from the soil and microbiology and from the system, we'll say, because it's a system, and they're pulling that up to the plant. And that's why that soil dries out so much faster, because there's so much root mass in there. That's multiple large pipelines exchanging energy, nutrients, moisture, exudates, and so on. So here's one of those root balls exposed down a little bit more. I've shaken a good portion of the soil off it. You can see the stem there. And you can see how much root mat is there even after I've shredded and ripped apart. And there was 2 of them here that I separated. You probably could take this, throw it in the ground, and let it rip. Or before the solstice, I imagine it would re-veg pretty quick. But brevity and efficiency, I just dumped it out upside down, basically gently, like a sandcastle. I can kind of flip it back over and out. I'm not too worried about any of it really. Looks like there is some good ginger rhizomes in here, so I'm going to replant those over into here. I might harvest some of that actually, because it's a pretty nice ginger right there. Alright, so here we are now. Actually, a little bit of a cloud cover coming through. This is even a better opportunity because there's no actual direct sunlight on them at the moment. And I've got the thermal indicators up and all, so you can see what soil temps are and pot temps and stuff. And I'll just run a nice slow scan through here so you can see pot temps and soil temps as we go up and down. And plant temps, leaf temps, we'll get it all. So that's a cannabis plant. That's that's an antenna blue haze from antenna seeds. Antenna blue laser light from antenna seeds. And there's some other planters here. We'll look at the pots compared to the planters. You can definitely see how much more temperature that solid material the planter takes on and conducts through to soil, shall we say. Those air pots seem to be keeping things a little bit cooler, so that's kind of nice. And we'll just take a look here at the Meyer lemon while we're scoping things out. And you can see this is the front of the crate where the top is, so I'll move that out of the way so you can see the actual temperature of the soil underneath. Definitely a little cooler there. Looks like those fins actually help protect the soil temperature a good bit. It's kind of nice to know. You want to keep those facing south, I guess. But see, there's a difference. There's pots that are back in the shade a little more, have a lot more soil mass and therefore more thermal mass to stay cool. And then here's my smaller crates up front where they've been in the sun all day. They're getting baked pretty quick, and I probably should come out here and water again. There's a good weight still to it, but it's looking like it could use a hit. So that's that, and we'll just take a look at this other one here in the ground, so you have a comparison of in the ground versus not. You can see how much those leaves are really cooling. They're actually, looks like they're growing very fast because they're transpiring and dissipating heat and moisture. But look at it. And now we're back out here. Put the line back on for you. And I brought a can of ice cold water straight out of the ground to water some plants with. These plants really don't need water, but I thought this would be another good example of demonstrating with the thermal mass how that water can run off and how it runs down through planters. I figure while we're studying all this stuff, we can just cover it. So let's have a look at the fabric pot for starters. You can see right away that water is cooling the soil, cooling the plants. They're actually kind of happy to have that. These peppers kind of probably could use a little help in the heat and the sun. I'm just going to soak this a little bit. I'll go down the side edge there so you can see down the side. And so right away you can see how unevenly the water goes down the planter on the sides and edges. And this just re-illustrates how much we have to be careful about making sure that water is soaking into where we think it is when we're watering plants. Let's just take a look at the crate over here, because that's a nice hard surface to compare it with. to soak this side of the crate more than the other because I just want the thermal to show for our example, our demonstration, our test here. But I'm going to soak down through real well, so hopefully our thermal mass temperatures show through over time here. And that feels like a good thorough soaking. That's like a half a can to me, right? And, you know, I know that's soaking down in. And I know that soil is partially moist, so I know we're having effectiveness. But if we just look at how it affects the way it comes down through, you can see it kind of forms these little zones where it spikes its way down through the soil. Once that area gets wet, it kind of carries that channel down. So just something to be aware of as you're watering plants. And also to be aware of pot temperatures on the outside. You know, high pot temperatures will cook your roots. So I would say the fabric pots definitely have a huge advantage in summertime temperatures. And any kind of thing you can do to protect the pot itself, even if you just wrap a piece of paper or reflective something around it, just to keep it from being struck with direct sunlight, which is immediately going to take it to 120 plus degrees. So some things to consider. Hope you found this interesting or informative. Thanks for watching the Pharmacy Seeds Network. And remember, keep your friends close and your farmers closer.